Alright, the first video in this series was initial enlistment. In case you forgot, in case you didn't watch enlistment, I'll go over a few small things. I may lag, meaning my talking. If I do, I'll fill in the gaps with text or verbal narration, whichever one is better suited. As I said, I'm going to switch up games. This time it's Rise of the Tomb Raider. Rise of the Tomb Raider is simply the backdrop. Rise of the Tomb Raider is not the subject of this video. It's the initial reception. Because this is an initial reception you go to, and I'll even explain what that's about in a minute. Oh yeah, also, comments. If I gloss over a thing, or there is anything you want me to elaborate on, leave it in the comment. I'll reply if it's a simple matter. If it's a more in-depth matter, then what I'll do is I'll heart the comment and make a video about it, addressing it specifically. Now let's continue with the reception. So, what is initial reception? Well, it's when you get certain paperwork taken care of that didn't get taken care of at the initial enlistment, because the initial enlistment doesn't take care of all the paperwork. It's also where you get your uniforms, your haircut. Basically, they're getting you ready for basic. That's what the point of reception is. It also teaches you a lot about the service. So, here we go. Oh, I'll also say this. The next video will be basic red phase. And I'll explain why it's basic red phase. Because there's 4 phases in basic. And each phase is going to be its own section, because it's going to take a long time to explain them. This one may take more than one part. I don't know. If it does, it does. It doesn't, doesn't. Anyway, so we're on the bus from last video. And we are going to reception. There was an actual name for the facility that we went to. I don't remember the name of the facility that we went to. Even if I Googled it, I probably wouldn't be able to find it, so I'm not even going to try to guess. I'm not going to put anything on screen, most likely. I don't remember the name of it. Probably Eagle something, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, we arrive. The first thing that happens when we arrive is that, like, all of our personal stuff is pretty much taken away from us. So we have pretty much nothing. We're given a duffel bag, and we're given some uniforms. The uniforms we're given are called PTs. And they're the uniform that you wear when you conduct PT. You can Google it if you want to, but don't look at the current ones, look at the previous ones. The uniforms that they had when I was in have been phased out. They're new uniforms now. The current PTs have black socks, black shorts, black shirt with letters written in yellow. When I was in, it was white socks, black shorts, gray shirt with words written in black. I think it was written in black. So not much different, mostly the coloration, but still good to point that out. Now, PT is physical training. One thing about initial reception is there's no PT allowed. Reason being, because in the past there have been people they used to do PT, but there'd be people who would get injured doing PT in reception and not even fucking make it to basic before they get fucking toned out, before they get discharged. So all the money you spent to get them to reception in the first place, all the taxpayer money in the first place, was for naught. So no PT is allowed until basic. Now, when the day you get there is day 0. Day 1 is the first full day that you're there. So we get our PTs on day 0. I believe you also get your haircut on day 0. And then, now, one thing they also give you on day 0 is they give you a booklet. No one, I want to make sure this is clear. No one, so you get the experience. Nobody tells you to read the booklet. They don't even tell you to open it up. What the booklet has in it is all sorts of information, from ranks, rank insignia, different positions, the commands for those positions, different mottos, the soldier's creed, the army song. Yeah, there's a bunch of shit in there. saluting, like a bunch of information that you would need to know is in those booklets. It really gets you prepared for shit. And I did read that. You're not told to read it, but I know you're expected to, because they start incorporating more and more of it into the daily routine of things. So I guess like it's kind of like implied that you should write it, but they never explicitly tell you to read it, but you should read it anyways, basically what I'm trying to say. And I learned a lot of stuff from it, like like the Army song, for instance. You know, let's see if I remember that. Let's see. I haven't recited this in a long time. Let's see. March along, sing our song. We're the army of the free. Count the brave, count the true, who have fought to victory. We're the army and proud of our name. We're the army and proudly proclaim. First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might. And the army goes rolling along. Fighting all we have won, fighting till the battle's won. And the army goes rolling along. Then it's hi, hi, hey, the army's on its way. Count off the cadence loud and strong. 2, 3, 4, where we go. You'll always know that the army goes rolling along. I may have gotten a word or two wrong here and there, but I actually remember that song for the most part. Holy shit. I can tell you right now, I don't remember the entirety of the Soldier's Creed, so I'm not even going to try to... You can look it up yourself. I'm not even going to try. Now, what we were also given, along with the PTs, is we were given camelbacks. You can Google that image, that one up for you too. The camelback on the inside has a little pouch in it. The booklet, I put in the pouch, because PTs don't really have pockets. They have 2 small pockets, and neither one of them are worth a shit unless you're trying to put like a credit card in it, or a CAC, which stands for Common Access Card, which is very important in that life. Now, as far as the overall, now let me give you a picture of the overall daily life in reception. So, you're in a platoon, and what happens is, you go to sleep. You're not allowed to go. The time to go to sleep, the designated time, is midnight. You can't go to sleep before midnight. The designated time to wake up is 0300. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna mention right now, because of the nature of these videos, I'm gonna be using 24-hour time throughout these videos. So if you don't know 24-hour time, you might want to pull out Google or something, because I'm using 24-hour time during these videos. The whole series. Now, we had to wake up at 0300. So we got 3 hours of sleep every night, and this lasted for approximately a week. So you can imagine how sleep deprived you start to feel after a while, especially when you're not used to it. I was not used to extreme sleep deprivation at this point, but it ended up happening. Like, sleep deprivation sucks when you're not used to it. Now, so what would we do during those times? Well, honestly, we would do nothing. And the drill sergeants that were there, somehow they put up with it. I don't even know how. One thing that I would do, now, and we didn't do shit until 0600. So we straight up spent 3 hours doing nothing just to be awake. And they kept an eye on us to make sure we didn't go to sleep either or anything like that. The intention was to make us sleep deprived. So what I would do I would take the opportunity, the first about 2 days, I would read from that booklet, you know, trying to learn shit. I stopped doing that. And the reason I stopped doing that is because I don't know if it was because I was just too tired or whatever, but one thing I realized is that during that period of time in the early morning, I didn't retain shit from the booklets. So I stopped trying to read shit. Now after 0600, pretty much the general schedule goes, you go to breakfast, you go to lunch, you go to dinner at the DFAC, which is the dining facility. And then in between those things, you go into lines in order to do things, like more paperwork. The only piece of paperwork I remember in particular is life insurance, because you have a life insurance policy, as you can imagine. There were a few plans ranging from $30,000 to $400,000 that your next of kin or whoever you designated as the beneficiary would receive. The one I chose, I'll tell you straight up, the one I chose was $100,000. Because when you choose these life insurance programs, it costs money. And one thing that I didn't realize until initial reception is that you get shit pay unless you're an officer. And I was like, you know what, man, I'm not about to be paying a fucking decent chunk of change every month for this shit. Like $100,000 is good enough for any beneficiary, and it's not cost. I think it costs like $12 a month. Don't quote me on that. So I was like, you know what, man, like that's good enough. So I chose $100,000. There was a lot of other paperwork. I don't remember what any of it was about anymore. So what I would do for the booklets in order to remember this shit was standing in line at the standing in the lunch lines, and what are the lines for meals in general, because the lines were long. I would read the booklet when I was waiting in line. That's how I did it. Now the way that the meals actually worked was retarded, because it was like a Disney ride. It was like big in Disney. It was like an hour-long wait to have like 2 minutes to eat and then leave, and that was it. Like there was no talking or anything. It was very disciplined. In fact, there was one guy on day one, not day zero. Remember that distinction? Day one. There was one guy who I was with at the table, and he was talking to somebody, laughing instead of eating, and they straight up told him to get the fuck out because he was wasting time rather than eating. So he didn't even get lunch that day. And I'll tell you what, he didn't fuck up like that again. Now, like, you're not necessarily timed. I said 2 minutes. It wasn't really timed, but you were expected to get the fuck out as soon as possible. So I'd say probably about 10 minutes. Like, they expected you to shut the fuck up and eat, basically. Now, one thing I want to do here, too, is I want to give you a sense of how crowded this fucking place was. Now, this place also had Air Force, and I believe it even had Marine Corps in it. As far as the Army side goes, there were 9 companies, labeled 1 through 9. Each company had 9 platoons labeled 1 through 9. So let's say you have Company 4 and Platoon 3, right? So your platoon would be 4-3, or 4-4, or whatever. My platoon was 6-3, so I was in Company 6, Platoon 3. So it was so goddamn crowded. You're expected to stick with your platoon like all the time, because your platoon is the one, you know, like, because everything's very curated the way you get things done, and you're expected to get things done with your platoon. Now you can imagine, and by the way, I want to point this out too. Platoon 6-3 alone had, I think, 104 people in it, to my knowledge. So I'm willing to extrapolate that each platoon had no less than 100 people in it. And there were 9 companies, 9 platoons in each one. I'm trying to give you a sense of how fucking crowded this place was. And I don't know, I don't know how the fuck they're dealing with this shit in current times, you know, because crowds are kind of frowned upon these days. I don't know how the fuck they're dealing with this shit, because... No, actually, I do know how the fuck they're dealing with it. They just don't give a fuck. That's how they're dealing with it. They're not adhering to that shit, to the safety protocols, because nobody's looking at them. Anyway, so it was so crowded. When you didn't even exactly know where your platoon was, because everybody's all over the place. It was honestly a very confusing place. So what would happen is you'd have people yelling out their platoons from where they were. So, you know, you'd hear 6-6, 6-4. Oh, and I think my company mostly went to lunch around the same time, because I mostly heard 6, 6, 6, 7, 6, whatever number. I think I heard a 7-2 here and there, but that was about it. So I would just wait until I heard the 6-3, 6-3, and I would go towards it. And 6-3 once again, a lot of people. And it was actually kind of funny. Sorry if I'm all over the place. It was kind of funny actually, because there was this tall black guy who would say it real weird. He'd go 6-3, 6-3. Like I can't even properly impersonate him, but it was just so fucking funny the way he would say it. There we go. But that was the way pretty much the meals went. And then there was paperwork. Towards the end of it, we ended up getting our actual uniforms, the camo. Once again, it's the older camo. If you're trying to look up these uniforms, the new ones are called OCP ACU. That's not the ones that I was with. It's Operational Camouflage Pattern Army Combat Uniform. That's not the one I had. I've never had that. That was being phased in as I was leaving. What we had when I was there, what I was issued, was the UCP ACU, stands for Universal Camouflage Pattern Armored Combat Uniform. Colloquially referred to as the digital camo. So if you want to Google image that, go ahead, but make sure it's the UCP digital camo kind, because that's the kind we had. Actually, I should probably back up a little bit. Because before that, we ended up getting the ACU boots, and we wore the ACU boots along with the PTs, with the green socks. And the reason why is because the ACU boots, you have to break in. They're uncomfortable on your feet before you do that. So they had us wear that for about 2 or 3 days. After that point, they gave us the full ACU uniform. And they had us buy a bunch of shit, you know, toothpaste, toothbrush, just toiletries, things you might need to know, you know, a razor shaving cream, because you have to stay clean shaven. Although at that point in time I didn't even need it because I didn't really grow facial hair anyway. But now what's pointing to do, I should mention one thing though too. This stuff was not taxpayer money. Whether the haircut, the toiletries, the uniform, the whole deal, all of it was taken out of your first paycheck. So your first paycheck in the service is very small because all that shit, they take it all straight out. We also got our ASUs at that time, Army Service Uniform, colloquially referred to as dress blues if you want to Google image that as well. There's a summer set and a winter set. We got both of them at the same time. Now, one thing too, although, as I said, it was crowded, one thing that would often happen to me, that I was tired as shit starting day 3. I was always tired. And especially those early mornings of 03 to 0600 really just, oh god, it killed me. I got lost sometimes, and so did a few others, because we would be like the last people to do whatever it is we were doing that day, and our drill sergeant would just say fuck it and leave us or some shit. We didn't know where the fuck we were. Now, the no PT aspect kind of fucked us over sometimes, because running is considered PT. And so the way they monitored that was that you had to have both feet on the ground at all times. Otherwise, it was considered PT. And so if you were late somewhere because you know where the fuck you're supposed to be, then you had to power walk your way over there, and sometimes it got really annoying. And you know, I didn't even learn everything I was supposed to learn from the booklet. Because one thing that ended up happening was there was one guy who this guy that I talked to told me he lost his booklet. So I lent him mine for like a little bit. And when I asked for it back, what did he tell me? What did he tell me? He told me, I forget what he told me. Moral of the story is he didn't give it back to me. But also I never saw him reading it though. The day I gave it to him, I saw him reading it. I never saw him reading it after that. So maybe he just lost mine, I don't know. But I got fucked out of my booklet. And the reason, and that's important. That's an important point, because it fucked me over to a degree towards the end of basic. I'll go into that when I talk about the basic portion of the basic training portion of this. I got a lot of information out of it, but not all of it. Now I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to more so the final day of reception, of initial reception. We were told to pack up all of our shit. Oh, you know, another thing we also got too, because we had to use duffel bags. We were issued padlocks that we had to pay for with our first paycheck. And I still remember what my code was, my padlock. I'm not going to mention what it was here, I don't know, just in case I ever meet anybody, that way they don't know my padlock combination. But I even remember what it was, still to this day. Now, we were told to pack up all our shit, put it on our bunks. Oh yeah, another thing they also taught us in basic, reception, was how to properly make your bunk. They taught us that too. And they made sure, we had to make sure that it was as pristine and perfect as possible. One thing I want to note is that in reception, the drill sergeants did not yell at us, they did not swear at us. They would correct us, but that was about it. And they didn't even, they weren't even really supposed to physically punish us. They did punish us one time, on the very last day actually, because one guy got some of his shit stolen, and we weren't able to find it, and nobody copped up to it, to who stole his shit. So we ended up just getting collective punishment. So we had to do some push-ups and shit for a little bit, but that was the only time we ever had to do any exercises. And the drill sergeant, in hindsight, he didn't want to put up with the bullshit anyway. He was sick and tired of it. Anyway, so last day, shit. We were told to pack up our shit, and so we packed up our shit. We were told to go to a certain room. What was it? I forget. We were told to go to a certain room, and wait, because what we were about to do is we were about to take our oath. When you go into the service, you have to take an oath. It's called the Oath of Enlistment. And yes, the Oath of Enlistment was actually in the booklet. And I did memorize it before I gave it to the one dude who fucked me over. That's one of the things I memorized. I memorized a lot of the positions: left face, right face, about face. I memorized how to do all that shit, like pretty right off the bat, from the booklet. Actually, put a pause on the Oath of Enlistment. On day one, not day zero, on day one, we started doing certain things like right face, left face, and I hadn't read up on that stuff yet. And so I made it a point to learn those things in the booklet. So I learned that stuff on day one, that way I knew it. I don't know why, I just thought I'd mention that. Back to Oath of Enlistment. So we were kind of waiting. We had our ACUs on. And because that day was the day we were going to basic. It was the very last day. And we were told to file into a room. So what we did was we filed into this room. And in this room, I was the second to last person in. And there were just a few ranks of people in there. In the back middle, there was like a place where you would step up onto. There were 3 guys there in dress blues. In the back left and back right corner, there were big speakers, and above, in the center of the room, not hanging from the ceiling, but next to the ceiling was a U.S. flag. There wasn't any sort of Bible, like to put your hand on. It wasn't like a repeat after me sort of oath where you say, I do so solemnly swear, do something. No, it wasn't a repeat back with that. We were expected, nobody told us this, but we were expected to already know the entire Oath of Enlistment, which everybody did. But the way it worked was we put our left hand, I want to point this out first. We had our PCs on. Your PC is a patrol cap. It's the hat that goes with your ACU uniform. The reason why it's important is because in regulation, you're normally supposed to have the way your hat works, outside you take it off, inside you put it on. Vehicles are gray area. In a vehicle, like let's say a POV, which is a personally owned vehicle, your own fucking car, you can have it on or off. It's a gray area because the regulation doesn't say anything about it. Now indoors, you can have your PC on under 2 circumstances. One is if you're under arms, if you have a firearm. And the other one is during important ceremony. The reason I mentioned that is because we were told to keep our PCs on during this Oath of Enlistment. So it tells you how important of a ceremony it is. The Oath of Enlistment is the one and only time where I ever wore a PC indoors. The one and only ever time. just trying to paint a picture for how important this ceremony was. We put our left hand on our heart, we raised our right hand, and we recited the oath of enlistment. Everybody did it in unison. Nobody hesitated. Nobody fucked up. Nobody tripped up or anything. We all did it at the same time. The only difference was in 3 parts. One was your name, because it does start out, I, insert name, do so solemnly swear. If you want to know the whole thing, just Google it, Oath of Enlistment. I'm pretty damn sure the Oath of Enlistment hasn't changed over the past few years. But then there's also, you know, do so solemnly swear or affirm, depending on your religious preference. And then at the very ending, some people did or didn't say, so help me God. That's the only difference. Other than that, everybody got it right the first time. We all said it in unison too. It was honestly a pretty surreal experience. And in case you're curious, I used affirm, the religious route, but then I also said so help me God at the end. So I took the non-religious route. I went 50-50, I guess. Anyway, so we had to do that though. Everybody in the room at once. We all did that. We all took that oath. It wasn't a blood oath or anything. We just took that oath. And then we went back to position of attention. Google that if you don't know what position of attention is. Google image it. Then we were told present arms, which means salute. And as we saluted, the reveille played from the speakers at the back of the room. If you don't know what the reveille is, YouTube it. Army reveille. And then we saluted the flag while it was playing, and then we were told order arms, which means you stop saluting, and we stopped saluting. Now, I was told afterwards that it's that the whole saluting the flag thing for the reveille is kind of part of the oath, because one thing it does, what the reveille does is it plays when you wake up in basic, but it also plays ordinarily when the day starts, when PT starts. So it's symbolic, it's a thing for waking up and getting started with your day. And so what I was told is that saluting the reveille as you take the oath is symbolic in the fact that like it's supposed to mean, you know, that like you're waking up into this new life. You get what I'm saying? That sort of thing. Anyway, so we salute to the reveille, put our hands down, and we're dismissed. As we leave the room, there was a female, probably officer, I wasn't paying attention to the ranks, there was a female officer who was there, and she shook all our hands as we left. She had a smile on her face. She was a blonde. And then the guy in front of me, I was the second one out, the guy in front of me took off his PC, so I took off my PC, and that was one and only time I ever wore a PC indoors. After that, we were told to clean up our areas. We already packed up our shit into our duffel bags, but we didn't actually clean the place up yet. So we started cleaning the place up. And while we're cleaning the place up, everyone's swearing. And when I say that, I don't mean like in an upset way, like, fuck this shit, fuck that, fuck everything. I mean it's just like casually. Like, some guy might be sweeping, like with a push broom, and he'll just be like, fuck, shit. He finds a paperclip on the ground. Motherfucker, cocksucker, fuck me, fuck you. And that's everybody. Like that. Like it was you. If you were there that day, because we spent like an hour cleaning up. For the whole hour, you just heard people calmly saying, "Fuck, shit, motherfucker, cunt, cocksucker, god damn it, son of a bitch, slut, hoe, whore, shit face, fuck face." Insert expletive of your choice. Why we did this, I don't know. I'm not gonna lie, I started doing it just because other people were doing it. You know, I was hearing people saying, you know, shit, fuck, motherfucker, left and right. I was like, shit, fuck, motherfucker myself. I was like, cool, you know, whatever. It was actually kind of funny too, because one guy mopped the floor and he used a special chemical that his mom would have him use in order to make sure everything smelled nice. We weren't sure if the room looked nice or not, but we were kind of done cleaning up. A drill sergeant walks up, because our place is upstairs. A drill sergeant walks up, and then he goes to the kind of front of the door, I was lying down in a bunk. We weren't supposed to be lying down in the bunk. We were supposed to still be cleaning, but we were already done. But we were like, okay, well, let's go ahead and see how this plays out. Drill sergeant walks into the doorway. I love this. It was so funny at the time. We were nervous at this point. He sniffs. He looks around, sniffs a few times, smells nice, everything looks nice. He shrugs, and he fucking walks away. We were like, alright, well, looks like we did a good enough job. And we just sat there for a while. And then from there, now, one thing I didn't mention before, I should probably mention this earlier, but there were a few guys who were civilians, and they went upstairs and told us to go downstairs with all of our shit because the bus was there. We were about to be leaving the basic. Let me explain about these civilian guys. These were guys who were supposed to be, these are guys who passed reception, they went to basic, but for whatever reason they got discharged from basic and they actually sent them back to reception. So they were civilians, but since they had already been through the reception process, they were kind of put sort of in charge of us since we hadn't yet been. And you know what, before I move on, I'm almost done with this actually. Before I move on, I'm going to mention one more thing. It's a funny story that I should have already mentioned, but I forgot about until just now. Part of when we were given the uniforms, we were also given canteens. We were given Camelbacks. We were also given canteens. And with the canteens, it was pretty much your choice on which one you wore. Actually, I chose Camelback because I had the patch in the back where I could keep the booklet. A lot of people chose canteens. With the canteens, you would wrap it around your left shoulder, and then you would just kind of open it up and drink it as you chose. I think it was day one, at night, there would be a drill sergeant who would tell us some bullshit, and then say good night, lights out, whatever like that. We would go upstairs and go to sleep. There was this one fucking guy where he had a question during the Q&A segment of that end of night thing. He raised his hand, he stands up, he goes, "Drill sergeant, when is it permissible to drink from our canteens?" Drill sergeant goes, "When do you normally drink water?" Dude goes, well, drill sergeant, usually either just when I'm thirsty or having a meal." Drill sergeant goes, "Okay, so why would you ask me such a stupid fucking question then?" He said it just like that, but like in the most aggressive tone, like acrimonious as fuck. Thomas. And so he sat the fuck back down, and the drill sergeant straight up, he was just like, "Fucking dumbass." He said it too, like when the dude sat back down, he shook his head, he went, "Fucking dumbass." It was just so funny. It was just a little story I thought I'd share with you, just for the sake of the funniness of it. So from that point, we go downstairs with all of our shit in tow. Bus shows up, we get on the bus. This time is different, because this time when we get on the bus, we're told to put our heads in our laps. So we do. We put our heads in our laps, and then the bus takes off with all our shit on board, and we're going to basic. And I'll tell you what, I was fucking stressed out. I was stressed out. I didn't mention this in the initial enlistment video, but during that month, like I mentioned, I got so stressed out at one point just from going in that I could see colors in the corner of my vision. Just random colors floating around, mostly green. During this bus ride, with my head in my lap, I saw those colors again in the corner of my eye. I was stressed, but I was ready. There was a drill sergeant on the bus with us, and we were on our way. And that's where the initial reception video will end. I guess that's it. Have a nice day. Next video will be basic red phase. Look forward to that. that one will be really good. So yeah, if you have any questions, comments, yeah, have a nice day.